Hello, it's Mr. Wyman here for another read aloud. And this week's story, the text is about the planets. And guess what? I was reading in the news and I saw an article that this particular week, this coming week, is a rare occasion where we will be able to, at night, go outside and see all of the planets of the solar system. Now, they're not aligned necessarily, but just to be able to see them all at the same time is really remarkable, because typically they'd be all over the solar system in different parts of their orbit, and they might be blocked by the sun, or we might not be able to see them in our particular sky. You'd need a telescope to see most of them, but some of them shine bright enough and are close enough to Earth that you can see them. When reading expository nonfiction, informational texts, it's good to think about what you already know about a topic before reading it. Like, there's got to be some reason you're interested in this at all. You have to have some background knowledge, right? And then, why would you read informational text? Now, I'm giving you this text to read, but typically you would read it because you're interested in it, right? So you already know something about it, and then there should be some things that you want to know more about. And by the end of reading, you ought to have learned something. And this is going to spearhead or start a project where we're going to do some research. We're going to learn how to research. Make predictions. As you read, make predictions about what will happen next in a story or what you will find out next in an article. To make predictions, use word and picture clues and think about what you know from reading and from real life. After you make a prediction, read on, continue to revise, and confirm your prediction as you read. Making predictions can help you think about what you are reading and help you remember important details. And here's a tip. When you read a nonfiction passage, skim the title and headings and any illustration captions to help you make predictions about what you will find out. This is one of the reasons I've been talking to you about text features, and we made our little locating information mini booklet is to point out text features that can help you get more information out of a nonfiction text. A chart that I made for you where you could type onto the slide. I always like to make it where you don't have to have paper, but like I said, I highly recommend that you either print something like this out, you could print this out, or you could even draw these boxes in your writing journal and then fill it out on paper. Take a picture of your work and then stick that into this slideshow to show me how much you engaged in this activity, this text. On a clear night, when stars shine brightly, you might see what looks like another star, but each night it changes position in the star patterns. It is a planet. The word planet comes from the Greek word meaning wanderer. What does it mean to wander? It means to walk aimlessly, just to wander around. You don't really have a goal or purpose in your walking. A planet is different from a star. People can see a planet because the sun shines on it. So the planet reflects the light of the sun. It doesn't actually have its own light. A star shines because it is made up of gases that give off light and heat. Our sun is a star. Nearly every star is much bigger than the biggest planet. In very early times, people knew of 6 planets. They were Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. These people named most of the planets after Roman goddesses and gods. Later, within the last 200 years, 3 more were discovered. They were Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Planet Earth is where we live. It is one of the planets that circle the sun. Together, they make up the main part of the solar system. The word solar means connected to the sun. The planets circle around the sun in paths called orbits. The time it takes for a planet to travel around the sun is its year. Each planet's year is different. While a planet is orbiting around the sun, it is moving another way too. It spins or rotates. The time it takes for a planet to rotate is its day. Each planet's day is different. While a planet is rotating, part of it faces the sun. It is daytime there. On the other side, it is nighttime. People can look up on a clear night and might see Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. A planet looks like a steady point of light. A star twinkles. A telescope is needed to see Uranus and Neptune. They are very far away from planet Earth. So I just heard on this page 391, the difference between a planet and a star. How can you tell the difference? A star twinkles while a planet will be a steady spot of light. Another way of telling stars from planets is if you go out at another time, either another time that night or the next night, a planet would be in a different place in the sky. Of the planets, Mercury is the planet closest to the sun. It is about 36 million miles away from the sun. During the day, it is extremely hot. During the night, it is bitter cold because Mercury doesn't have any atmosphere to keep its heat from escaping. When it says day and night, it means the part of the world, the part of the planet Mercury that's facing the sun. When that is facing the sun, it's incredibly hot. And the part that's not facing the sun is super cold. Mercury is the second smallest planet and is made up of rock and metal. 1 year on Mercury is only 88 Earth days. That's how long it takes for Mercury to orbit the sun. Mercury rotates very slowly, so its days are very long. A day on Mercury is 59 Earth days. And in this little illustration it says an atmosphere is a layer of air, like a blanket around a planet. Venus is the second planet from the sun. It is usually the brightest object in our sky, other than our sun and moon. At sunrise and sunset, it looks like a big bright star. It is bright because Venus has a cloud cover that reflects the light. These clouds are made up of gases. Venus is about 67 million miles away from the sun. It is hot there. Venus is almost the same size as planet Earth. 1 year on Venus is about 225 Earth days. A day on Venus is about 243 Earth days. So it takes almost the same amount of time for Venus to rotate as it does for it to orbit around the sun. On Venus, a day is longer than a year, and a year is shorter than a day. That's wild. It's like a science fiction. Earth is the third planet from the sun. It is the only planet known to have just the right environment for plants, animals, and people to live in. Earth is 93 million miles from the sun. Planet Earth has just enough gravity to hold its atmosphere around it. Earth has a moon. The moon causes the tides to change, making them rise and fall. Earth orbits the sun in about 365 days to make an Earth year. It rotates every 24 hours to make an Earth day. You can see in the illustration it says, a moon orbits a planet. It has no light of its own. It reflects sunlight, just like the planets do. Mars is the fourth planet from the sun, about 142 million miles away. People wonder if there was ever life on Mars. Although the surface of Mars is dry now, it once had rivers and perhaps even an ocean. In 2004, the Mars Exploration Rover mission sent 2 robotic vehicles to examine the planet's surface. Scientists may still find evidence of life forms. Astronomers believe that Mars looks red because iron on its surface has been rusted by the planet's thin atmosphere. It is very cold and is a little more than half the size of planet Earth. Mars has 2 small moons. 1 year on Mars is about 2 Earth years. A day on Mars is about as long as a day on Earth. So Mars and Earth have some similarities, but then there's some vast differences. Jupiter is the 5th planet from the Sun. It is about 484 million miles away. It is huge. It is bigger than all the other planets put together and has rings. See, I didn't know that when I was a kid. I don't know if it was discovered yet or if we thought that Saturn was the only planet with rings, but Jupiter has rings. And Jupiter and Saturn aren't the only planets that have rings. Jupiter is mostly made up of gases. Some of the gases form a giant red circle called the Great Red Spot. At least 63 moons orbit around planet Jupiter. One moon, and I don't know exactly how to pronounce this, Ganymede, is the biggest moon in the solar system. It is bigger than planet Mercury, another moon. It's bigger than the planet Mercury. So why isn't it a planet? Why is it a moon? That's a question you might want to write down on your chart. Another moon called Io, which reminds me of our Greek mythology. Io was in our story that we read just recently. Has many active volcanoes. One Jupiter year is almost 12 Earth years. It has short days, just under 10 Earth hours long. Rings are made up of rock, bits of ice, and dust. Saturn is the 6th farthest planet from the Sun, about 887 million miles away. It is the 2nd largest planet. Saturn's hundreds of rings make it look different from the other planets. The rings are made up of ice. Some pieces are as big as houses. On Saturn, it is extremely cold. Saturn has at least 46 moons. Titan, its largest moon, is the only moon in the solar system with an atmosphere and clouds. It takes almost 30 Earth years for Saturn to orbit the Sun. It rotates in about 11 Earth hours. So it spins pretty fast. Our Earth takes 24 hours to rotate. And Titan, does that remind you of anything from our Greek mythology book? Uranus is the 7th planet from the Sun. It is about 1.8 billion miles away. It is so far away that from its surface the Sun would look tiny. Uranus has 10 rings. Uranus is the 3rd biggest planet, about 1/3 the size of planet Jupiter. At least 27 moons orbit around it. Planets farther from the Sun have longer orbits. They take more time to travel around the Sun. For Uranus, to make one orbit takes about 84 Earth years. That should tell you why it's so extraordinary that we can actually see all the planets at one time in our sky right now, this coming week. Because it takes 84 years for Uranus to go around the Sun, and therefore it's not every day that it would be in our sky along with the other planets. For this to happen is extraordinary. Uranus rotates in about 17 Earth hours. Neptune is the 8th farthest planet from the Sun. It is about 2.8 billion miles away from Neptune. away from the Sun. Neptune appears to be blue because of a gas in its atmosphere. It is almost the same size as Uranus. One of Neptune's 13 moons, Triton, is about the same size as planet Earth's moon. The spacecraft Voyager 2 visited Neptune in 1989. One Neptune year is 164 Earth years. It rotates in about 16 Earth hours. Until 2006, Pluto was thought to be the ninth and farthest planet from the Sun. It is now called a dwarf planet. Sometimes its orbit carries it closer to the Sun than Neptune. At its farthest, Pluto is about 3.6 billion miles from the Sun. It was discovered in 1930. Pluto is cold and small. It is smaller than Earth's moon. It has one moon called Charon. 1 year on Pluto is about 248 Earth years long. A day on Pluto is about 6 Earth days long. Here on planet Earth, astronomers search the skies through telescopes. Spacecraft are sent into the solar system and beyond in search of new discoveries. We are always learning about the planets, the stars, and what lies beyond. It is fun to search the night skies for planets and stars from our planet Earth. An astronomer is someone who studies the stars and planets. And here's more about our planets. This is like a summary, right? Adding up all the information that we've gathered thus far. Mercury, which is bigger than Earth's moon, has a core of iron. Venus rotates in the opposite direction of the other 8 planets. That's pretty different. Earth is the middle-sized planet. 4 of the planets are smaller and 4 are bigger than planet Earth. Mars has a very large canyon. It is the biggest in the solar system. The canyon is. So the pronoun it refers to the canyon. It is called Mariner Valley and is 13 times longer than the Grand Canyon in the United States. Jupiter is huge. If Jupiter, couldn't say it, were a big empty ball, more than 1,000 Earths would fill it. It is very windy on Saturn. Around its middle, winds blow 10 times stronger than an average hurricane on Earth. When the spacecraft Voyager 2 flew past Uranus in 1986, it had been traveling through space for 9 years. Neptune is 30 times Earth's distance from the Sun. Some astronomers have said that studying Neptune from Earth is like studying a dime a mile away. Some interesting perspective. Pluto, now called a dwarf planet, is the only planet that has never been explored by a spacecraft when this text was written. That might be a research question that you want to explore. So oftentimes after these texts, there will be some information about the author and the illustrator. In this case, Gail Gibbons both illustrated and wrote the text for this article. But here, instead of a little series of paragraphs, you have a question-answer back and forth structure giving you information about Gail Gibbons. Question: did you always want to write and illustrate books? Answer: yes. In fact, I put my first book together when I was 10, right around your age. Question: how do you choose topics to write about? Answer: most of the ideas for my books come from things I love and want to learn more about. Question: how do you put a book together? Answer: first, I do all my research, then I begin to write. Once the words are there, I begin to make pictures to fit the words.